everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Grossman Files. So today's a rather somber occasion. I'm here in Woodlawn Cemetery, and I'm looking for the grave of Ace Frehley. I figured by now it would be plastered all over the internet, and there'd be a million videos and pictures. But I searched for it this morning and I saw absolutely nothing. And so I figured I'd come out here and see if I could come here and ask and if they would tell me where it was. I figured it was just public and there would be no problems with that. But the very nice lady at the office, again, don't have any problem with Woodlawn Cemetery or their office staff. Very respectful, very nice, and of course I'm going to be very respectful and very nice. But apparently the family is keeping it a secret. So I said to her, well, if I walk around and I just happen to find it, is that okay? Because I figured I'd walk around and I would see a newly dug grave, something that looks kind of like this. Whoops. Kind of like that. Figured that would be fairly simple. But even though I've been here several times with my Son of Sam stuff, looking at Samuel Untermeyer's grave on this rainy Wednesday afternoon when I just happen to have an hour or two free, I figured how hard could it be, but as you can tell, it's really like finding a needle in a haystack. So I don't have any hopes that I'm going to find it and show it to you. But I figured let's spend 15-20 minutes together while I walk around here and see if we could try our luck. That they didn't want to make this public. Jim Morrison's grave is public. John Bonham's grave is public. And it's actually a good thing, in my opinion, to make these graves public. I mean, why? What's going to happen, right? And no one's going to vandalize it. Anybody who is going to come out to Woodlawn Cemetery to find the grave of Ace Frehley is going to be a fan. And if anything, would revere the grave, put little trinkets on it. So I figured I would ask, I would just see if it was cool to walk around, and if I found it, was that a problem? And she kind of laughed at me and said no. So I'm out here looking for it now. There is a musician section. I should have a map, but I don't. There is a musician, I'm trying to get into the mind of Ace Frehley. First of all, when would he have bought these graves? He said he wanted to be buried near his parents. So you figure his parents died within the last 15 to 20 years, just given his age of 74. And so that kind of narrows it down for me as a 20-year-old gravesite. And and again, I don't know Ace Frehley from a hole in the wall. I have one Ace Frehley story, which is really not much of a story at all. But I'm sorry for the shaky camera, guys. I just don't have my stabilizer with me today. Let's go down here and see if we can see any newly dug graves. So I figured that he probably bought this grave 20 years ago, 10, anywhere from 10 to 20 years ago. He said he wanted to be buried near his parents, so he probably bought his plot along with theirs. And would he want to be, it's not raining much anymore, take the umbrella down. Would he want to be in the musician section where the only one that I know for sure is buried there is Miles Davis. But I know that there's a lot of famous musicians buried here, in addition to a lot of very famous people in general. So it's not looking good, guys. But I just wanted to be, I'm gonna go to that section there up on the hill. And I figured he'd want to be with musicians, and he had enough money to buy a prominent spot, So I kind of narrowed down my search to like the most nicest of areas here, the most prominent looking of graves. But it's like absolutely freaking impossible to find this thing. It's worse than a needle in a haystack, and it's probably not going to happen. But let's go up this way. But again, I don't know Ace Frehley from a hole in the wall, so how could I ever pretend to get into his mind? He might have wanted the most secluded of all secluded spots, deep in the heart of Woodlawn Cemetery. And I would never know, because I didn't know the guy at all. Not my only Ace Frehley story, because I'm not even really a Kiss fan. I love some songs like Deuce, Strutter, Detroit Rock City, She. It's basically it. I have a hell of a lot of respect for Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, for the juggernaut that is the Kiss army and the Kiss legacy, and how they were just so cutthroat about it. And of course, as Neil Peart talked about Ace and Peter being the sensitive ones. Let's show you the cemetery. You don't care about what I look. I have sympathy for Ace and Peter, because ultimately they were just a New York City band. And being a New York City musician of the next generation from Kiss, I came up in the late 80s and early 90s. I dealt with the same, even though far, far below their level of stature. I dealt with the same issues that they dealt with. Sometimes bands are just not friends with each other. In fact, I'd venture to say that quite often, bands, even the most famous bands that you can possibly imagine, the members of these bands are not friendly with each other, or friends with each other. I thought this black one might be it, but no, it's Airman. Let's see this one here. Again, I'm looking for like a new grave. And I've been in a lot of bands where, those clash of egos, different personalities, and the interplays between all that come into heavy play. And you could have the best musical chemistry with someone and hate their guts. In fact, that's been my story. The most intense musical experiences I've ever had have been with people that I didn't really like that much, and they didn't like me that much, including up to this day, because I still try to play drums every now and then in bands. But it's not looking good. So yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for the personalities of Peter Criss. I'm gonna cut through, and Ace Frehley, because they were like, as Neil Peart said in that interview, they were the sensitive ones in the band who weren't so cynical as Paul and Gene, and so they were railroaded. And I can totally relate to that dynamic. So as we are here, I'm only going to spend another 10 minutes on this, looking for Ace Frehley's grave. So my only Ace Frehley story is when I was 16 or 17. So the latest it would have been was 1990. I was in Sam Ash in White Plains, which was a great store back in the day. Now a new store has taken over the same space. They're calling themselves Smash Music. They took away the A from Sam Ash. Actually, kind of a good idea. So I'm in there, and I don't know when it was. It was probably a Saturday. or Sunday because I was out of school. And the store was actually kind of empty. And I'm just sort of looking around, and the next thing I know, I recognize Ace Frehley, who's in there all by himself. And I really only recognized him because I was a big fan of the Howard Stern show on Channel 9. Those of you who are heads of the old Channel 9 from Secaucus, New Jersey, remember the famous Howard Stern show. You remember Morton Downey Jr. And in those years, Ace was like a stalwart of those productions. I'll go this way and then I'll go that way. I think that's where the musicians are. And then we'll end it. And so that's really the only reason I recognized him, because again, I was a Rush fan. I was into Yes, Sanderson, Bruford, Wakeman Howe. I was into more heavy metal. Kiss to me at that point was nothing. I don't want to say nothing, but I wasn't a fan. What can I tell you? So I'm kind of watching Ace out of the corner of my eye, and he's walking around Sam Ash just by himself looking at instruments. I remember him sitting at the piano, at an electric piano synthesizer type thing, and he I want to say he was playing Stairway to Heaven, but that could just be like a false memory. But he was playing something melodic and nice, actually. He wasn't a bad piano player on the electric piano. And nobody was bothering him, and nobody was talking to him. But he looked at me, I looked at him. I didn't even really acknowledge who he was, because again, I was kind of intimidated. This was a big star who I definitely was going to respect his privacy. And in those years, he was still something in the music industry. But I remember he kind of looked sad and lonely, all by himself in Sam Ash. And that brings me to like the whole notion of like, what kind of lives do these people lead? You know, we're all just human beings. It doesn't matter how famous you are. Everybody wakes up in the morning, does their daily routines, and goes to bed at night. And despite the fact that these people get to play on stages and have roadies moving their equipment, there's really nothing that separates most of these musicians from the average person. And let's face it, Ace Frehley and the guys in Kiss, and they'll tell you themselves, they weren't the greatest of musicians in the world. So, what was his life like in 1990? Was he actually lonely like I surmised? Maybe someone reading this who knows him can give some insight into his life in those years. You figure he was still doing a lot of drugs. He wasn't yet sober. He had all sorts of money problems, most likely. And was he not happy? And why was he in Sam Ash on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon all by himself with no entourage and nobody following him around taking pictures and so on and so forth? But again, the explanation is probably pretty mundane. He's just a human being like everybody else. I'll continue on this path. At this point, I'm not even looking for his grave. But it's going to be impossible. But Woodlawn Cemetery is definitely a cool place to take a ride and walk around. At one point in American history, the graveyards were considered like public parks. And you'd go here and you'd have picnics and spend time to relax. So, yeah. Ace Frehley, rest in peace. I'm actually, like I said, surprised that they didn't tell me where his grave was. They said that this came from the family, and until the family gives permission to make it public, that unless you're like me and you come here and walk around and you literally go to every grave site there is, which would take you a long time, the chances are we're not going to know where old Ace Frehley was buried in Woodlawn Cemetery for quite a while. But I think I'm the first person to come out in YouTube land, to come out and look for it and bring a report live from the scene. So yeah, that's basically it. Let's keep on walking just a couple more minutes and then we'll shut it down. I don't want to turn this into a huge production. Is that my car? I want to see. Like, did I make a weird... Yeah, weirdly enough, I ended up totally in the opposite spot of where I was. I thought I was on the other side of Woodlawn Cemetery. So I'm going to walk down this way to the right because that's where I think the musicians are buried. It should only take about 5 to 10 minutes. And maybe we'll get lucky. And then I'll find it, right? And then the family will strike the video. So anyway, hope everyone's doing well out there. For those of you who are watching this with no idea who I am, my name is Manny Grossman. Spent the last 5 years on the trail of Son of Sam, trying to figure out what the hell happened in those series of crimes in New York City in 1977. When I was 4 years old, living in the Bronx. And our journey led us from the bullshit tales of Maury Terry and his accomplice theory to the absolute truth that he worked alone, and also that he had a new victim, which we found, named Wendy Savino. And I starred in the recent Netflix documentary called Conversations with a Killer, the Son of Sam tapes, directed by Joe Berlinger, which was an amazing experience. So just in case you're new watching this and you're interested in who I am, that you could take it from there if you have any interest at all in true crime or the Son of Sam crimes. But let's look back here at Woodlawn, because again, you're not here to look at me. Give me a second. Let me look at the chat while I'm here. Why the secret? Riverdale, what's up? What's up, Simon Ack? Riverdale in the house. So yeah, just like last week, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Peter Criss were in this cemetery mourning the loss of their fallen comrade in the classic lineup of Kiss. And of course, that brings up the whole notion of dying rock stars and the loss of our youth as boomers and Gen X. I'm a Gen X, born in 1973, sort of at the near to tail end of Gen X. And our own aging and the deaths of these people gives our own lives a lot of perspective. And me personally, I'm realizing, wow, I only have like maybe 20 good years left before my 70s, and then it's all downhill from there, most likely. So it's like 20 years would have been 2005 if you just look in reverse. And not for nothing, but 2005 seems like yesterday. And if you're Gen X or a boomer, you're probably feeling the same sort of feelings that I am, which is, wow, this life is so short. And you don't realize the good times when you're in them, usually. And you don't realize how there's really that sweet window between 20 and 60 where things could be really great, and then they kind of go downhill. I'm not saying that I plan to be a decrepit old man. I don't want to be that. I hope I'm not. I'm trying to take care of myself. But at most, I have until 2050 to live, 2052, maybe 2055, which is just another 30 years. So take that back. That's 1995. That was 5 years after I saw Ace Frehley in Sam Ash. And that seems like yesterday. So this is all to say, enjoy it, guys. Because our time as boomers and Gen X is quickly passing on to the next generation. And we're becoming less and less relevant as every day goes by. And of course, that goes also for our icons. People like Ace Frehley. For me, the devastating death was Neil Peart, because as a drummer who was obsessed with Neil Peart, when I got that surprise message that he was dead that day on January 10th, 2020, or January 20th, I think it was, 2020, I was just sitting there in shock, like, oh my God. And I really felt that that piece of my childhood was gone forever. And it ripped something from my heart for sure. So this is going out to all you Ace Frehley fans out there who are probably feeling the same thing, the same pangs of loss for not only one of your favorite guitarists, but also for your own lives as well. All right, well, I think that's basically all I wanted to say, because I'm not finding this grave at all. It's just completely impossible to find this. But maybe one or two things will happen. Well, only one thing will happen. Maybe, wow, this is cool. The pyramid. Simes. So are these the all-seeing eye New World Order people with their weird symbology? I doubt it. But that is a cool mausoleum. So as I was saying, maybe the family of Ace Frehley will catch wind that people are very interested in going to the grave site and laying down a wreath in remembrance of Paul Ace Frehley from the good old boogie down Bronx. Thought he grew up on Marshalloo Parkway, but I really don't have a freaking clue. But anyway, and maybe when that day comes, you'll get to see the actual gravesite, pictures, videos. But for now, this is the best we could do, folks. See if there's any last. I'm a boomer, and yes, it's in a blink of eye speed. Real Scarlet's true. Kiss at Roosevelt Stadium, Jersey City, 1976. Still the best Kiss show, I'm sure. I was 3 years old at that point, so my heyday was the 80s and 90s. But damn, sometimes I'm jealous of y'all people who grew up in who were like of age in the 70s, because that's when America was, in my opinion, at its pinnacle. Economically, socially, people just knew how to have fun back then. And what the hell happened? I really don't know. So anyway, guys, that's basically it. Let me leave you with one last view of Woodlawn. My shaky ass camera. Say goodbye to looking for the grave. All Ace Frehley. Take care.